Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is an incredible woman. She is an international 5D Feng Shui and holistic wellness consultant. She practices Bach flower therapy and also does incredible work with crystals. So her name is Patsy Balacchi. Patsy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to always connect with you.
Always an honor to spend time with you.
Likewise.
I know that you had this incredible healing journey that kind of set you on this path. It's incredible how things that happen and present in our lives kind of shape our entire life path and future. So I wanted to start with your healing journey and how that began and how it got you to where you are today.
Thank you. Yes, I really enjoy sharing my story. Why? Because it makes me feel a part of this evolution process that we're going through as humanity. You know, we all have come most of the time from places of deep surrender, and sometimes not for the good ones, and that's what helps us elevate. You know, so we have to get to the mud, we have to get to the grind in order for us to come out of a strong, like a lotus flower. And that's basically what has happened to me, or that's kind of how I feel about my life, how it's taking this journey with me in the complete holistic wellness process, you know, of healing my mind, healing my soul, healing my spirit, my body, my emotions, especially, you know. So being a spiritual person, you know, since very little, because of my background and, you know, having just beautiful connections with my grandmothers, I always felt a very deep sense with the elements and nature. I always felt a sense of belonging with the earth in some ways, you know, something very spiritual. I always felt very guarded, felt protected in, you know, the most incredible environments. So I grew up in a country in El Salvador very early on where there was a lot of political turmoil, and we were kind of like in the middle of it. And so from a very young age, you know, we always kind of had to be guarded somehow.
Sure.
So my healing journey began probably when I became pregnant when I was 19 years old. I was dating my son's father for 3 years. I never thought I could get pregnant. I wasn't planning around to get pregnant.
Whoops.
And it happened. And what was very unfortunate at the time for me is that he really didn't want a family. You know, he was young, he was very ambitious and a go-getter, and he's like, you know, honestly, this is not going to work out. At the same time, my young brother, who was 1 year old at the time, he was going through liver cancer. So my mom had to really take care of him at the time. I was very, very alone. I felt very disconnected. I was scared, you know, what was going to happen to me. I didn't have the trust, the confidence, the being uncomfortable talking about this to my family, to my friends. Nobody knew. And with that, I didn't really take care of myself. I developed something that is called toxemia. It's basically where the body is not able to get rid of toxins. So everything was just in my blood. You know, some women tend to get swollen from it, lots of headaches, and it could really get very, very intense. Luckily for me, it didn't get so bad in that way, but I developed a uterus infection from it, which led me to have my son prematurely. And with that, there were so many complications that I was given some blood, right, from a blood transfusion, because I lost a lot of blood during the delivery. And unfortunately, it was contaminated with hepatitis C. So at the time, they were only checking for, you know, the HIV virus, AIDS, and all that. And me being so young, I signed some papers. The hospital was not liable for any of what was happening. And so you could imagine, I felt like I had no life. I was completely left by myself. I didn't know how to face the world. I felt ashamed. I felt dirty. I felt so.
That's so much to take on at that
Yeah.
age. That's so much.
And I was thinking, what is it that I have in me, right? Like, what is this? It's just completely like all over me. I'm not. But what was more impactful for me at the time, what really, really made me very upset was the fact that I felt like I wasn't going to find any love for me, a partner that was going to accept me, or that I was going to have any more children. Because somehow, after having my son, you know, you never know. I didn't want him to be an only child.
Right.
I felt like I wasn't going to have a life anymore in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for about 3 or 4 years, I went through complete depression. You know, my mom thought I was on drugs, but I just didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't do anything. I was basically taking care of my son at the time. But something within me, you know, started clicking. I started feeling a sense of, you know, I was getting bored. So instead of really going under, something within me was telling me, listen, it's time. So I listened. Somehow it took a little time. It took effort, you know, coming out of depression is not something that from one day to the next. I decided to go back to school. So I enrolled in a community college, and I got my degree in visual arts and commercial art, and I really enjoyed it. At the time, this was in 1996 already, and my son was born in 1990. My dad gave us an offer to move to Miami. And I said, you know what? I think this is going to be the greatest thing right now. One, because I'm not going to be surrounded with, you know, my son's dad was in and out of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to deny that. It was a very tumultuous time for me. He was very manipulative, and, you know, I had to grow up a lot because of that. So I decided to take my son away from that environment, even though it was going to be heartbreaking for my mom and, you know, his grandmother too. She was always present for him. But I had to do something for myself this time. And I listened to that. We moved to Miami with my younger sister, and we gave it a go. And it was probably one of the best choices I ever made in my life. I connected with a wonderful school. From there, I met a spiritual teacher who started helping me with how to meditate, you know, because to me, that was so hard. This was like in the late 90s, how to meditate, how to like help my emotions, I was carrying a lot of anger, you know, and when you're suffering from liver disease or hepatitis, it triggers the liver. The liver correlates with anger, with father issues, and all these things, you know, and I didn't know how to express any contentment. For me, everything was on the defense, so I always had to basically fend for myself.
You're a fighter.
Yeah, and, you know, this compassionate side had not really yet taken the forefront in my life. Mm-hmm. So from these tools and modalities that I was already beginning to implement, like Buddhism, Native American spirituality, connecting back to earth. And from there on, I actually met my friend Adora Winquist, my wonderful aromatherapist Adora, who connected me with another type of energy work, which is aromatherapy and energy balancing tools and universal guides and tapping into divine feminine forces and all these other things that were pretty vague, but at the same time somewhat intriguing for me. Mm-hmm. And she introduced me to an amethyst stone. She introduced me to lavender essential oils, and she really helped me at the time to cope with emotional balancing for myself, to actually be nurturing to myself, mm-hmm. and how to reinforce certain aspects of my life through the emotional path using aromatherapy,
Powerful.
which was really wonderful. While I was working at the time with this company in the tech business, we were building websites and actually going to become Google's competitor, but obviously it didn't happen. I came across a book from a woman who lives in New York and talking about Asian health secrets. This Asian health secrets had a preface from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And from there on, I pick up another book where it ties in with the philosophies of Feng Shui and all this Tibetan tantric, esoteric spirituality that is basically the lineage of Feng Shui that I started tapping into at the time. So it was amazing to me. During the late 90s, there wasn't that many books on Feng Shui, so there were just a couple that came from the same lineage of Feng Shui, but it just felt so intuitive for me. It just made so much sense. And I started thinking, I would love to study with this woman, Andy Santo Pietro, who's my mentor now and teacher. And she also, and I get to this later, but she also got me to where I can actually heal my hepatitis. I mean, so it's all sort of connected from there.
I can't wait to hear that story.
Yeah, so imagine this. This is in the late 90s, early 2000s actually, when I initially met my husband then. He was just my boyfriend, and it came to a point, fork in the road, right? Like, what do I do with my life? Do I want to go back? I was already thinking of going back to New York, going back to the Northeast, because I grew up in Connecticut, and bring my son back for some reason. We're just kind of, and of course, all these things that I wanted to do for myself in design and Feng Shui and all that. At the other spectrum, I have my boyfriend who was offering all this goodness, all this nurturing and support. I think at the time I was scared for commitment. I was scared to take that step, but something within me said, you know what, stay put.
I'm glad you did, because he's now your husband.
It took me 4 years for it to say, hey, you want to get married now? So he was basically waiting for me to ask him to marry. He already proposed a long time ago. And he waited, and I learned from unconditional love how to be more nurturing, more compassionate, and not having to give something of myself in order to feel wanted and deserved. In the sense that, it healed me. It healed all these deep wounds of, coming from a relationship where I wasn't really taken care of and loved, and really, what's the word? Feeling like I really belonged, or feeling like I was really an empowered person, an empowered woman, or at least a mom. I wasn't given that credit. And I don't blame him. I never gave him that. I gave him my complete control to this other person. So I can honestly say with so much gratitude now, thank you to my firstborn's father for being that shadow teacher of mine, because then I wouldn't have known, the other side, the goodness.
That polarity is so important. You can't touch one side, and you can't appreciate the beauty and the love if you don't touch the dark, right?
So there was a period of my life that I was sort of struggling with, how much am I going to give? What else, what's going on here? What can I do? And it came to a point where I really didn't need to do anything. Everything was just there waiting for me to take the first step. And I remember clearly, just after having a very bad argument with my ex, and it was over the phone or something, and I was on my way to school, and I picked up my keys, heading towards the car, and all of a sudden I said, you know what? in my head, enough. And I looked up. I wasn't very like spiritual and all this. I'm like, enough of this. I felt this wind behind me, like a caress, like just somebody blowing. I got in the car. I felt like I was 20 pounds lighter. And I drove to school like a totally different person, so peaceful. And 3 months later, I met my husband. It was just like that. It was
surrendered.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful thing. The journey has been very fulfilling, gratifying, and so humbling. I actually continue practicing spirituality and methods of meditation, Kriya Yoga, and a little bit of Ayurveda. That's what I was doing too, and I felt that I would be able to live for the rest of my life this way, carrying hepatitis C with me all the time, because at the time I had tried a couple of traditional medicines, and they did not work. I had the most horrible experiences with that. I mean, my face was scarred, my hair was falling out, I lost so much weight. This was right before meeting Massimo, and it was just like a very, very horrible time in my life. I was feeling so unattractive and just like, what the hell am I doing, right? Again, I went through a period of my life where I was very, very upset. Like I was finding ways to heal myself and just wasn't working in a physical sense.
Right.
So I went back into the spirituality aspect of things. I went back into tapping into my emotions, how to heal my heart, how to like be at ease with what I have, right? At least coping with that. How do you cope with, maybe I wouldn't call it a life sentence anymore, but you're carrying a monkey on your back for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I just didn't want to have anything to do with traditional medicine. So it led me to the path of Feng Shui. It led me to a path of where I can actually align my life with everything that I want to manifest, or everything that I need to have in balance. Where, some areas of our lives are going to be more intense or more powerful than others. So we need to balance those areas somehow in order for us to feel like we can go on day after day after
What's
day.
so interesting to me is I've never thought of Feng Shui as a healing art. I always thought of it as placing things in a certain way to control the flow of energy, but I never realized that there are healing properties that come from.
Well, like everything is energy, right? So
of course, yeah.
with the philosophy of Feng Shui that I studied with Andy, she combines the chakra energy system in her practice. And so she combines sound therapy with her practice. She combines all this healing by multi-vibrational modalities within the Feng Shui aspect, because everything is entwined. So what we do with that, when we come to Feng Shui for health, we tap into seeing why is it that, for example, my own life, I was lacking self-love. I was lacking feeling that I could deserve pure love, unconditional love. I was lacking that. I wasn't being able to grant myself compassion and a belief and confidence within myself that I can do this for myself. So I work with that area of my life, learning how to heal my heart through different mantras, through meditation, through placing certain elements, enhancing a certain area of my house, and to actually harmonize with that, to invite it in, for myself. So I worked a lot with the essence of Divine Mother. I worked a lot with the essence of, and it comes in different representations. It comes in when you buy a bouquet of flowers, it can be white flowers, it could be pink roses, it can be something that's very subtle, something that makes you feel like, when you're a baby, right? Sort of speak. It had to come from a sense of healing those deeper wounds. It wasn't really the the mature aspect of me as a woman, it was coming from something much more in depth, right? Perhaps tapping into the sense of not being deserving of a man's love. Okay, my parents were divorced when I was very young. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. So
when did you have an awareness, Patsy, that you were starting to heal yourself?
I started feeling an awareness that I was feeling more joyful. I don't know about the healing part, like the physical aspect of it, right? I started feeling that my emotions were healing more than my physical body. My mental body was actually more at ease and peaceful and surrendered to the notion that I am well, that I am loved. You know, I found a man who supports me no matter all these things that were happening. You know, how could, you know, a man, he didn't have any kids before, you know, marrying someone, he comes from an Italian family where, you know, he's got a huge family, and
Yeah.
and he will be one that will not have his own kids. That to me was just like, huh? To me, he didn't deserve that, right? Like it wasn't compatible with me. Like I didn't want to do that. I didn't want him to regret something. But that was just me. That was my head. He was completely happy having me. We were open to the notion that we could adopt. And we already have my son who, you know, that was very good for him too. It was like a trinity, you know, so he was completely content.
So what shifted? What shifted for you? Your health started to improve.
Well, I started, I'm glad you touched on this, because when I found a neuropath doctor in Miami when I was living there, he basically started talking to me more about just becoming vegetarian. And I noticed a complete shift with that, with my health, my physical health. There was just one thing that was missing, and it took a little tiny longer, but everything, all my blood work was completely healthy.
You mean once you shifted your diet, that was like a key piece
that was a component for me.
Journey?
Yeah.
Wow.
It got to a point where I was able to have the liver enzymes, the hepatitic levels at a dormant state. And this
Just
was
from shifting well, you did a lot of inner work too, emotional work, but then.
Yeah, but I had to basically complement that with my nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big factor that wasn't working before. So I tried it, and I was able to conceive. I mean, I was always very, how would I say? Fertile, yeah. So that was not an issue, but, you know, I wasn't going to allow myself get pregnant if I wasn't able to have a healthy child.
Right.
So I got pregnant, and I was able to have a wonderful baby while my liver enzymes, the hepatitic levels were low, but I was warned. They said that this pregnancy could actually elevate them, and it could bring some kind of conflicts and this and that. But I was recommended the most wonderful doctor in Miami who treated women with my case, and women with HIV that were actually pregnant. So she even told me, it's like, listen, if you want to have another baby, all you got to do is call me.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so, I mean, easy.
It's incredible how the universe just kept delivering you the right book, the right doctor, the right mentor, the right teacher, the right spiritual guide.
And it was amazing. I had this most beautiful child who comes completely synchronized with something totally different. So I'm not only bringing in a beautiful human, but I'm bringing this super highly energetic child that is blowing our minds away. And he just really, there was a different frequency with him. Mm-hmm. A very sensitive child. I mean, I did not know how to cope with that, So I was lucky enough to stay home with him and take care of him because he needed a lot of nurturing, a lot of special care. And this is what another teacher in my life, another little master in my life who taught me how to tap into flower essences and how to work with Bach flower remedies and really.
Tell me a little bit about what Bach flower therapy is for those who don't know.
Yes, well, Bach flowers are actually extracts from flowers and plants. They call them Bach because Dr. Bach, Edward Bach from England, he's the one that originated this method, this system of 38 different flowers and bark, and I think there's a couple of water ones there too, and basically work with the energies of the extract. So one tiny little bit can really make a big difference because it's energy work. And so what happens, the energies from the plants, because they're so pure and they only grow at certain times of the season, right? Because they're all like that. They work on different tapping into the way humans will go because we are part of the earth as well, right? So they help us connect to the earth in the most purest form so that we can actually open up and really accept and be a part of connectedness with Mother Nature. So they help us heal in the mental and the emotional. Once we start healing the emotional, which happened to me, and the mental, the physical becomes more aligned as well. So it's really.
So, Patsy, what does a Bach flower session entail? Is there an interview or you do meet the individual first and then intuitively kind of find
a conversation, right? Usually it lasts an hour. If it's a family, because I like to treat not just the child or not just the parent, I like to work with the entire family because I see the changes much faster with what's happening in that environment. Okay? Because most of the time, children are a projection of what's happening in their surroundings. First and foremost, the home. Second is school. So once we have that, and we need to have the children to be respected, protected, and fully loved, and have these tools for them with that. So whenever I'm working with a client and if there's a child involved, I like to have the parent also take the remedies. There will be different because they synchronize with something, but there are some certain constitutional ones that I highly recommend. Right now we're going through a period of great transition. There's a lot of crazy, chaotic energy over there, and children are very sensitive these days. So there's certain ones that I recommend, like walnut, that children can take pretty much every day. They're non-toxic, they're non-habit forming. They can take it with the water. If they're on medicines, they can do that too, and will help them harmonize with that. So that would be one way to do it. And honestly, they're just so subtle and so gentle that you can continue doing this for a good 3 weeks. Then we can change up the remedy, and it's very simple. You can buy it at Whole Foods. You can buy it at Target, I think. Amazon.
Wow.
As long as, and the tincture bottles are very small. They're about $15, and I'll just let them know, listen, you need to get, this particular essence.
So can somebody do a session with you that doesn't live in Texas? Like we're in Houston, Texas.
And I send it to them. I have my tools, and I prepare the remedies for them.
So people can reach you on your website. Maybe you could share your web address here, and I'll put it below so people can find you.
I'll be happy to connect with them through zenotica.com, zenotica.com. And, I usually recommend a conversation. I always start with a conversation. I like to hear what the client has to say. And yes, I can tap into what they're going through by the tone of their voice or by what they're not saying to me,
You're very intuitive. I know that.
So I find that besides Andy, who actually introduced me to Bach, how I was able to incorporate this with my own healing process with my son, and how to help him cope with life when he's going with it. And honestly, I've seen the changes with him tremendously. He's a lot more calmer. He's a lot more patient, and he sleeps well through the night.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's a blessing right there.
Absolutely. I know you have a workshop.
Yeah.
A vision board workshop coming up. So tell us a little bit about that. It's going to be in January of 2019, right?
It's going to be January 12th, 2019.
Okay.
People are already asking me, why don't you have it now? And I say, you know why? Because there is an intention for this. I am working, my intention is to work with the energies already of 2019, right at the cusp, right before the lunar New Year starts on February 4th. Right. There's a reason for this to happen. It's happening on a very auspicious day also, and we're tapping in with the creative force. We're tapping in to creative expression. That's the energy theme for 2019. So how do we come up with that? It's numerology. So if you sum up 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 9, it gives you 12. So we divide that. We don't divide it. We simplify it. So we go 1 plus 2 makes a 3. So carrying that notion of the number 3, which is all about divine trinity. It's about creation, right? It's about the earth, the universe, the earth, and you, the center. It's all about coming together as that. It's just going to be so amazing. So I decided to do it on January 12th because 12 is it's a great number too. And I am going to be collaborating with my friend, who's a wonderful artist, Nicole Bray. She actually came into a networking event, a women's networking event in Houston, and I saw that she carried this pretty canvas, and I'm like, oh, she's an artist. And when I looked at her artwork, I'm like, wait a minute, that looks like a Feng Shui Bagua vision board. I'm like, how do you come up with that? She's like, well, this is my vision board, and then, I'm going to be teaching how to do it. And look at it right here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So because she's an artist, she's like, I'm not going to be helping people create a poster board. This is actually going to be canvas. We're going to be using acrylics. We're going to be using an actual canvas board. And
I can't wait.
I showed her what I do with the Bagua, our energy mapping system, which basically correlates to 9 segments of your life within your environment, and how we can actually enhance those key areas of your life through the Feng Shui practice of the energy system, and how you can actually make it come true by putting your energy into your creative process.
Love it.
So everything is in harmony with that, so there's a reason why I decided to do it. And I also feel like it's people right now are very interested in just community and parties and family. They're not really thinking much about themselves too much. Right. And I want to come in a place where people are already grounding to the energies of 2019. And so we have this window of opportunity to create. I love working with the frequencies of love. I love working with the frequencies of light, of hope. There's just way too much other stuff. You have other practitioners that are focusing on, how to protect yourself with this and that. That's all fine and dandy, honestly. But I feel for myself, if we vibrate higher, we are going to be okay. And so that's my take. How do we come up? How do we raise the vibration of everything that you have? How do you raise the vibration of this pencil? How do you raise the vibration of this crystal? How do you raise the vibration of your wedding finger? How do you become everything? It's in alignment with you, to service you in the highest good. Because I feel that God didn't create anything mediocre. it's our take. Energy is energy. Whether we want to do something positive or we want to do something negative, it's just, or we don't mean to, but the thought is there, and I already created it. So,
So
you were
powerful.
talking about how do we get off that, the mouse wheel, right? The hamster wheel of, we come up with a negative thought, something that's creating a little bit of anxiety in us, and then we just keep going at it. And we're like, no, you know what? You just poof it out. Oh, there it goes. Oh, was that, like my Kriya yoga teacher says, oh, was that a jealous thought? Oh, I see. Oh, was that a nasty little thought? Oh, okay. But you don't take it in, right? You actually see it.
You recognize it and release.
Recognize it. You say, yeah, it's there. And then just don't give it that power.
Right.
Let it go.
Right.
So it's interesting how those particular aspects of ourselves stick. Why is it that a negative thought will make more of a nuisance in our heads than something positive? Is it the fact that we're still coming from a place of lack, of underservedness, that we're not good enough, that we don't deserve to be loved? I kind of think it's like, do we carry all this weight from multi-generations of, so much despair?
Yes.
So we still, trying to get rid of all that karmic debris, right?
So if people want to sign up for your workshop in Texas, in Houston, how do they go about doing that?
Well, for now, we are working on a Facebook event and actually Eventbrite. So we're going to have that up by the weekend. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you and your platforms, most likely social. So if you go to Zanatica.com, there will be an event page there, and it will be all about it. So sign up. We're actually going to be offering an early bird special because it's going to be a 3-hour workshop. All the supplies are included. And we're going to have about an hour talk on Feng Shui, what the energies of 2019 are going to bring for you, how we're able to shift, heal everything that's happening in your house. Can put yourself in your place in your house. What can you do there? And how to bring those tips back and actually make them work at home.
Awesome.
And at the
Sounds
same time,
amazing.
you get to work on your own energy map, on your vision board.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very excited.
One last element I want to discuss with you is your crystal work.
Oh,
How did that come about? And
well,
tell
it's
me
a
about
beautiful
that.
story also because I connected with my best friend from college in Miami. We met in Miami. She's actually 9 years younger than I am. So she's kind of like a little sister to me sometimes. And she went to New York after she graduated from college. I stayed in Miami, but we always created a lot of work together, a lot of great work together. At the time, she was actually working with an animator and doing really great commercials in New York. And every now and then I will be doing some projects with them. So that was amazing to create a flow. Because of our wonderful friendship throughout the years, and after she became a mom herself, she came to visit me in Miami about, I would say, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. We were all in the kitchen and we were all talking about how to create some tools for empowerment, not only for the individual, most of the time women, but for the family nucleus, right? How do we come together with something like this? So we were calling it something like the art of living, or becoming the self, and all these other beautiful brainstorming ideas that were floating about. But then she came up with this. It's like, why don't we just call it siendo? Siendo in Spanish or in English, it means being. So the art of siendo is the art of being, just being. And some of the presentations and symbols that we came up with, we wanted to create a tool for families to work with. But it basically became something totally different, something that was a little more simpler to understand. So we tapped into the different frequencies of the crystals based on the energy centers of the human. So instead of calling it the first chakra, which is the root the root chakra, we're calling it foundation, your survivor center. What can you do with that? So not only for a mom or a dad, you also have the child who can actually tap into the energies of feeling grounded, feeling supported from, Mother Earth. They have something called like creation, which I love. It's one of my favorite pieces, and I want to show it to you. And actually, I think I'm going to show you the foundation. Look how tiny this one is. I don't know if you can tell a little bit.
Yes, beautiful.
These are the children's ones. So we base the children's line in the elements, the different elementals like the sylphs, the gnomes, the salamanders, based on the elements, the fire, the air, the earth, ether. We have a collection for the star child, for the spiritual child, for this new frequency child, like I was telling you about with my son. So we're calling it Fire Realm. It's just really, really amazing. And we actually harmonize it. We synergize it with essential oils. So we have created, not for the children aren't the essential oils per se. So they're not mixed because of, it's just much better that way for them. It's pure. Mm-hmm. But for the adults line, we have created special blends that correlate to the different aspects or the different intentions that the person wants to manifest in their lives, whether it's creation, compassion, optimism, bliss, all these beautiful synergies that, we love to have. So for me, creating bliss, it's when you're completely whole, right? When you actually, your life is fulfilled or you want to get there.
Right. Right.
Like they say, fake it till you make it.
So do you have a link for that line on your website as well?
Actually, I'm working on it as well. It's been in the making for several months, but now the way that people are getting them to me is by meeting one-on-one whenever I'm having these pop-up shops right now during the holidays. Mm-hmm. And I have some friends that come over, they'll see them, but honestly, because we only made a small run, I don't know if I want to actually create a whole card about it, but I will definitely put them what I have so far.
Well, if people are interested, they could reach you through your website, and then you could have a conversation from there, right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's how we're working on, and that's how I'm able to incorporate my love for essential oils, my love for this high vibrational synergies, how they all complement with Feng Shui, like people think of Feng Shui of something very exotic, something hard to define. But when we start just implementing it with the way that you live your life, with the things that you love, for me, simplify your life. Get rid of everything that doesn't serve you any longer. Just get rid of it. That's it. And then start nourishing that, filling those empty spots, because I can attest to that. There's some places that there's nothing there. I gotta put something there. My husband's like, no, why? You're like taking space. I'm like, well, I'm going to put something meaningful, not just for the hell of it.
Right.
Put something that's going to make me smile when I see it, like a big plant or a big canvas.
Right.
Not just filling it with junk or something that's not vibrating to me, because that's not the intention.
Well, Patsy, I'm going to wrap this up here, but before we do, I always ask my guests if they have any words of wisdom they'd like to share to help our audience that might be going through a difficult time or struggling right now. Maybe you can share something that helped you move through.
What has helped me is actually the belief that you are not alone. You are not alone in this life. There's a part inside you, within you. The universe is inside you. The kingdom of God is inside you. You just have to recognize that. You don't have to look elsewhere. All the answers are within. And when you come to a place of surrender and just a deep bow of honoring yourself, your divine essence, that is where you are. And that's what I offer. Just silence. Just come to a place of silence and gratitude for who you are, and you'll see everything begins to shift for you.
Oh, thank you for that. That is so, so powerful and so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much, Patsy, for joining me today. What a beautiful conversation. I think you're such an incredible light being, and I know you're going to be you're going to be sharing that with the world in the years to come. But to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you'll check out Patsy's website and all the incredible work she's doing, and maybe take her words of wisdom to heart. I hope you have a beautiful day, and don't forget to love yourselves, and I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you, Patsy. Namaste.